Welcome to Market Buzz. I'm Greg Schnell, the Canadian technician and host of the Market Buzz. Each show, we do a deep dive into different industries using weekly charts to see what is happening on a long timeline. Please follow me on Twitter at Schnell Investor, and you can also find my blogs on gregschnell.com as well as StockCharts.com. So today, end of the first half of the year, and I think more importantly is what's setting up for the second half. And as we discuss the market internals here, a lot of people are concerned that a lot of stocks are under their 50-day moving average, and I agree, and summer can be weak and all that kind of good stuff. But we do have some price action showing up in some specific industry groups, and this is one I'd like to share with you this week: alternative energy. My theme, one of my main themes for the second half of the year is focusing in on energy. In Canada, we started to have energy alerts with the high levels of heat we've got this week. And in the US, California and Texas are still trying to recover from some of the power outages they've struggled with. And we see other states also dealing with that. And around the world, we have the same problem. We have Germany with issues, even though they're supposed to be one of the renewable power leaders. We actually had renewable power shut in Canada because of the high temperatures. So it's odd in the way it's all lining up, but I think one of the biggest things that's going to come to the fore as oil production diminishes, because nobody wants oil companies to produce more oil, that pushes up the price of oil, which pushes up the level of the pricing that energy supplied by alternative means, solar, wind, geothermal, hydrogen, can be profitable at. And so once those prices also get pushed up, we have this opportunity within the alternative energy umbrella to compete more easily because the price is high enough for us to get projects done. So with copper costs going up, aluminum costs, steel costs, polysilicon costs, all that kind of stuff, we're pushing up the cost of alternative energy, and conversely, if we don't have a price increase, then alternative energy becomes unprofitable to bring new projects on stream. So what we want to see this week and the second half of this year is the price of oil and gas high enough to actually make more alternative energy projects viable and try to get those going. Now, unfortunately, we've done a lot of Bitcoin mining with all the new renewable energy, and so we haven't actually created new power to the grid to replace the fossil fuel investment or fossil fuel supplied energy that we're working towards for net zero. So looking at the broader picture, I think the second half of the year is going to push up energy prices, both natural gas and West Texas crude, and those companies will continue to do well. I also think there's a massive opportunity over in the alternative energy space. And the real question mark is if we can get the governments on board to actually approve projects in a timely manner, including copper mining and materials mining in general, to get that availability level higher, to lower the cost, to make these alternative energy projects go. So that is the theme, is alternative energy starts to shine. If you like what I'm talking about and you want to follow that with me over the next 6 months, I think I was probably one of the first people to point out how big the opportunity was in the alternative energy space back in the fall, bringing that whole area of the market to the fore. And then also the big change in oil industry. You can go back and look at all my work into October, and it was pushing that up. If you'd like to be a big part of that and get some ideas as we go forward, we do daily setups every day. So anyway, I have a Fans in the Stands playoff sale, and you can save $363 if you go to gregschnell.com/sports for just $497. That's a 2-week free trial. You could go in there, try it, see what kind of data we're putting out, and see if there's an opportunity for you to get an idea on how to trade this big alternative energy move and even the existing oil and gas movement. So if that excites you, feel free to head over there and check that out. Again, a 2-week free trial. Okay, where do I want to start? I want to start with the market overview. I'm going to go to the NASDAQ 100, and you can just see gently going up. And then when we look at the Dow, this is just over the last 2 days. But I think one of the big things to look at is the NASDAQ This is a 10-day trend. That looks pretty good, actually 15, and it's rolling up nice and high. And then you see over here this Nasdaq, and I have another chart. I'm not going to show it today, but it shows a previous example in history where the Nasdaq basically built the same sort of pattern and then just slowly started to climb out of it. And each week it went on for like 13 or 14 weeks where it just kept building higher highs and higher lows. Market had very low volatility. It wasn't massive moves, but you could make some real money just being in it every week as the market climbed up. I kind of think we're there. I think the second half of the year might not have the dramatic runs we had before, but I still think there's an opportunity. You can see the Nasdaq is now outperforming the S&P 500 for the last 6 weeks. That's pretty bullish after underperforming from February 12th down. And as we break out into a NASDAQ outperformance, that can be the large cap tech, right? Apple, Amazon, Microsoft, etc. Because those 7 companies make up the 50% of the NASDAQ 100. So this chart is deeply influenced by those, but I think the area that I want to focus on within the NASDAQ broadly is the opportunity in the competitive energy space today. So we're going to cover that off. Anyway, so I see the NASDAQ going higher. I like the uptrend, and we see this base building in here, and now it looks like we're starting to work our way out of it. It reminds me of this period in here in 2019, and we ended up from October 1st in that case going on a beautiful run after we broke out above the prior highs, going on a beautiful run all the way into January, February for the COVID high. It looks to me like we're set up for that nice big run, and I think it's an opportunity for us to get long. We've got a buy signal on the NASDAQ 100. That looks like it wants to go higher to me. So here is a couple of oil and gas charts or company names in here to represent different areas of the market. But the one thing I wanted to point out was here's oil in red. So it's down in here somewhat. And then you have Brent crude right behind it. So these two have moved up nicely. So since beginning of September last year, it's been a really nice push. So call it nine months, 200 days. And we've pushed up quite nicely. Now, natural gas is down here in green and has been lagging, but recently you can see it's made almost a 20% move up in natural gas, and that continues to be an area of interest across the space. It's a little bit cleaner than oil, so that's one of the reasons people like it. And also, as the cost of crude oil goes up, the cost of alternative energy goes up. Natural gas is a way to supplement high demand periods that can be turned on and off quite easily. And so with the low cost of natural gas, people are looking to that right now. So it's up 50% in the last 200 days. But most of that, a big part of it, almost 20% of it, has been literally in the last couple of weeks. So a real big move in natural gas. Two of the big performers are Ovintiv and Fang Energy or Diamondback Energy, ticker symbol Fang. And what we see on those charts, obviously, is they're clearly outperforming over that same period where crude oil is up, in the 90% range. These things are up in the 190 and 240% range. So very, very bullish. Tourmaline Oil is a small Canadian natural gas focused company, not all natural gas, but focused that way. And it's actually just really had a nice run of 20% in the last couple of weeks as natural gas started to speed up, and we're starting to see an increase in that part of the market. Down here, we also have Canadian Natural Resources, Canada's largest oil company. I put it on here because they have a big weighting in natural gas, but the chart really hasn't responded. You can see that since late May all the way through to late June, it hasn't really done anything, and I don't know if it's the calm before the storm, kind of like it did here into April and then accelerated up in May, but it's just kind of sitting sideways. It's just a very profitable company, so I'm actually expecting this chart to start to break higher. But one of the points I wanted to make was that most of the companies are still trending up nicely. This one, it isn't trending up. It's been trending sideways, I think is a way to say that. And then the question we would watch for is to see if it could actually rip higher on the back of increased oil and increased natural gas. And then we have ConocoPhillips hiding in here in blue. And that chart looks okay. That's Brent. It's this one I want, ConocoPhillips. And again, it's been sideways. So the integrateds, like ConocoPhillips and Canadian Natural Resources, when they have refineries and that kind of thing, what happens is as the price of oil moves up quickly, they're not able to pass that price increase through to the gas stations as quick. And they end up getting squeezed on the refining side of the company, but doing very well on the production side of the company. That changes once crude starts to level out, and then the refining part of the company margins normalize. So the resource part of the company, while they might not be growing or accelerating their earnings, they're holding steady, but then all of a sudden we see the refining earnings start to kick in. And so they can have a late leg higher where those companies start to accelerate. All that to say, in general, these charts are going bottom left to top right, and a pretty good backdrop for the alternative energy space. When we look at XOP, you can see it's been moving higher, but I don't want to say begrudgingly so, but it hasn't really gone anywhere in 5 weeks. So we broke through the the March highs. And as we broke through there, we've just consolidated. And the real question is, as we get to the second half of the year, what will OPEC do and how fast will OPEC bring on higher prices or higher production? I think OPEC is pretty firm here. They're clearly not willing to let the price degrade. But when we look at this chart a little finer, what we see is we're sitting right on the big uptrend from the breakout last November. So there was a downtrend in place here. The breakout soared up, pulled back in the middle, and now broke out again. We're sitting on that trend line, and the question is how sensitive to be with that. So I have an uptrend in relative strength here that broke briefly into April and then restarted, and that was kind of in earnings period here. We're heading into the July earnings period now, so I don't really want to be I sure wouldn't want to be short energy. The real question is, can these stocks continue to outperform the S&P 500? And right now it looks like they might break the short downturn or short outperformance trend on the S&P 500, but still maintain the big uptrend. That's kind of the issue we're looking at. So in terms of monitoring the Delta variant and how it might dampen crude demand, these things are all being factored in, and you can literally see XOP hasn't gone anywhere since the beginning of June. We're just migrating sideways, waiting for the earnings period to come out. In the meantime, crude oil's been pushing higher, so the charts, I'm expecting things to get a little bit better. So this is the alternative energy space, and I want to just pick out a 1 month period. But what you see here is these companies are making big moves higher, even though the market's been relatively, I don't want to say subdued, but we haven't had a lot of big moves higher. As I mentioned earlier, the Nasdaq's just kind of gently migrating higher. So from this renewable energy space, let's quickly look in on the charts. I don't have a real axe to grind here one way or the other. I just wanted to point out that these charts are getting all set up for a push to higher highs, and I thought I had set this up, and somehow I didn't. Let me just update that and get this set up with apply style to all. So what I've done is I've set the chart period to 3 years, and what I want to do is apply the style to all of the charts in here. And by doing that, we'll have the same look. So here's Array Technologies, and this company literally was very fond in the fall when renewable energy was taking off, and the stock came out at 22 and immediately moved up to 40. Rolled over in that February timeframe where everything started to break down, fell hard down to $15, and is trying to build a base down here. When we look at Beam Global here, this chart has already broken its downtrend and is starting to work its way higher. It's been climbing for 6 weeks. I like the fact that the PPO is starting to turn up here, and the point is not to pick out specific names for you, but to give you an idea of the trend across the renewable energy space, because I always think and there's been some pretty good studies, but I have noticed as well that when you have a whole industry group going up, that gives you 50% of the lift. Most of the stocks in the group are going to go up, and now you just want to try and find the fast outpaced ones. So here's Beam, and it's pushing up nicely. Ballard Power is just trying to make the turn right here. You can see the PPO is starting to get close to crossing its signal line. It's migrating in around the 1750 level, and after being all the way up to 42, that was a pretty rapid pullback, but we'll see if it's got a next leg higher. I would expect that it wants to try and push up one more time. China recycling really consolidating sideways since March. Nothing to look at, no signs of improvement yet, but again, it isn't breaking down, so that looks pretty good. Canadian solar having a big week already, so at the end of Tuesday up 16%, and you can see these are starting to break the downtrend here, move above the 10-week moving average, now above the 40-week moving average, and the PPO starting to turn positive. Again, just looking back on a chart, when you see the PPO going positive, you get these nice runs, and they can be a good place to enter. You saw in July of last year, the stock started to accelerate quickly above the 40-week moving average, and that literally started a move from 26 to 67 in the second half of the year. Does that look familiar? So here we are at the beginning of July 2021. This is when it started to make its move in 2020. Is this just a seasonality thing and they're all going to start to make a run? This chart sure suggests that. Here's Iguana Technologies. Gently consolidating sideways, been in a tight range here for 6 weeks. Want to see the PPO start to bounce off the zero level and make its next leg higher. Enphase Energy, this one's been a big mover. Chart's really compressed because it's a logarithmic chart, so it goes up by percentages. You can see it was $5 a couple of years ago. It's 150 now, 185 this week. Moving up quickly. This chart's already well on its way. The StockCharts technical ranking back above 90%. Just got a PPO cross this week. Looks exceptional once again. Fuel Cell Energy migrating sideways, hasn't really started to move. PPO sitting right on zero. It wouldn't surprise me if the rest of the group starts to go that this stock gets a little bit of fire. It was in around $10, and its high back earlier this year was $29.40. So a 100% upside there wouldn't be hard to take, and almost 200%. First Solar, I mentioned it to members last week that it was looking really good to start to take off, and it's continuing to follow that. We've got a PPO turning up here right around zero, and it's starting to migrate up. So when I look at the charts again, I want to see the whole industry group starting to move, and I think as we just start to work through these charts, you're starting to see that we're breaking out to new 5-month highs here. The stock is really starting to move. Scooter ranking moving up into the top half of its group, which is the mid caps in this case. And again, I like to see momentum turning up. This is right around zero, so it's got lots of runway room to the upside. FTC Solar pushing up very, very nicely after a rough IPO. So it started off in around 13 up to 15, back to 7, and on its way back up. So that chart looks like it's getting a bid. Looking in on Fast Track Solutions, this was still is a penny stock. It was a almost 1 cent stock, and now it's up to 22. So that looks a little bit better. Global Clean Energy, pretty small price action. Another one with very low pricing. I'm just going through all of the ones when you run a scan for renewable energy equipment. Jinko Solar up huge this week, already up 33%. Got a PPO cross and things are starting to move. Chart looks great in my opinion. Maxion Solar Technologies breaking out of this base here at $20, pushing up nicely. Haven't quite got a PPO cross, but the full stochastic weekly full stochastic, it looks like we've double bottomed here and we're starting to take back off. This stock was 15 to 57. That's a pretty nice move. We're just on our way through 20, so perhaps it's got some more upside left. New Hydrogen, not really getting a bid, down around 3 cents, so we'll just scroll past that one. Here's Sunnova Energy International. The downtrend has been broken. We're starting to push above the 10-week and working our way through the 40-week. We're about to get a PPO cross here in the full stochastic. Not only has moved above 20%, but above 50. And normally, one of the things that if you look at the full stochastic is if it can get back up above the 50% level and stay there, it can be a very nice ride if you have the patience. You can see an uptrend in relative strength, a downtrend in relative strength, and now we're breaking that downtrend and starting our way higher. Chart's got everything I like to see. Ocean Power Technologies just migrating around $2 here. PPO right at zero. Um, Again, can it start to break out to the upside? I think it certainly could. Plug Power gently working its way higher. It's up 7% on the week. Again, 2 days in. And if it can get through this $34 level here from earlier in June, that's probably going to mark the turn complete. And we've got a PPO just about to cross. So you're seeing all of these charts just getting set up this week. Real Good Solar under a penny, so I think we'll just move along. And then here's Sunrun. So this is a solar stock itself, and you can see the downtrend here now being broken. We've moved above the 10-week. Scooter ranking is moving up to 50, still a little weak, but starting to accelerate from a low level. It's broken the downtrend in underperformance from the S&P 500, starting to turn higher. Full stochastic starting to wake up. And on this one of the things I really like is when I can take this chart and draw a trend line across the PPO momentum and suggest that not only is price breaking its downtrend like it did here, but we're also starting to get a big major change in the downtrend in momentum that's been going on for almost a year. And when that starts to break out, that can be pretty bullish. And back here, I would have drawn that. You could have drawn a trend line here, which would have given you a 3-month run, or you could draw a trend line here as it's breaking above zero. And that was a pretty good place to get on board, let's say mid-June last year, and $20 to 82 or $20 to 100 if you could ride out that pullback. I just, a chart like this looks very exciting with lots of upside potential. And Solar Edge Technologies, this has been a real powerhouse name. The downtrend is breaking, starting to turn back up. It's up 5% already this week. The relative strength downtrend is starting to break. These are all good characteristics in a stock, and you start to see the PPO wanting to turn its way higher. Shoal Technology Group, new IPO again, really kind of a rough wiggle out of the gates. You can get it back to what it was back in January, just getting back there now on the IPO and starting to head out. So that's nice. Solar Integrated Roofing, a 50-cent stock, so I'm not going to talk a lot about it. Renesola, big downtrend here, starting to turn higher. The stock was all the way up around 35. It's sitting at 10. So you've got a 70% pullback in the first half of the year. Can it start to turn around and do what it did last year from $1 to 35? You can get by on that kind of return. PPO starting to work its way into a positive cross. SPI Energy, a big thrust. I think this one came through the SPAC sort of arrangement, if I'm not mistaken. They were being bought or merged or something like that. Anyway, the stock migrated sideways. It hasn't started its breakout yet, but the PPO is right around zero. Looks like we're about to get a PPO cross. You can see we started to get some volume acceleration up in the 10 and 20 million shares last week. So there's some interest showing up here, and the price hasn't moved much. Wouldn't take much to get a spark going there. SunPower Corp, downtrend in place, has broken, starting to move back up above the 10-week and 40-week. PPO is about to cross, and you're starting to see the 50% level on the full stochastic being breached. Just looks good to me. Sunworks, again, the downtrend being broken, wants to start turning higher. I'm seeing the same thing over and over. Let's hit repeat on that story one more time. Here's TPI Composites. I think they make the blades for the windmills, if I'm not mistaken. And you can just see, again, we can draw these trend lines all day long, but what do we want to see? We want to see a change in the relative strength. In this case, if you didn't like that line, maybe that line, or even just go with a horizontal one and say when it gets to new 3-month highs, that would be probably pretty helpful. But the PPO is getting ready to turn up, and again, this went from 21 to 71. Not a message I want to miss. Those are pretty nice opportunities if they're setting up again. Vestas Wind Systems, I think we all know them as the windmill company. Big downtrend for the first 6 months of this year. The stock was $5 and went to 17. For such a major player, I'm surprised the stock actually hasn't performed a lot better. But again, there's lots of opportunity in this space. This one also looks like it's going to give us that PPO trendline cross and break the downtrend in momentum. Lastly, I've got Solar Wind Technologies and ticker symbol WNDW, and you can see $39 all the way down to $7.50. It was a rocket ride from November, call it $9 to $39, a fourfold increase in about 4 months, and then now we've had the opposite come back and a chance to buy it on the test of the big breakout. So hard not to like these setups here when they're getting really so powerful. So we're going to take a horizontal line, put it above the prior highs. Sure enough, where do we come down to and bounce? Right around that level. And now we look like we're working our way out of the base here. So really nice opportunity setting up in this whole space. I still like the liquid energy space. That's the crude oil, natural gas, gasoline space. Gasoline just hit a 7-year high at the wholesale level this past week. So that's very bullish. But again, as those competitive costs of energy start to rise up, you also get the opportunity in these renewables to have a higher profit level or a higher hurdle level for new capital projects. So you can, as the economics improve on these renewable projects, you're supported by the high price of the selling. So it works out very, very nicely that the liquid energy is pushing up, which should help this alternative energy. I think the alternative energy names probably have more leverage to the upside than the liquid energy, but nonetheless, I think it's going to be a horse race in the second half with a lot of these energy areas starting to work out really, really well. When we look at the COVID variants and the Delta variants, I do agree that there's a little bit of pressure there, but the AstraZeneca vaccine has proved effective against it. The Moderna vaccine has been proven effective against all of the variants. I just saw a report that 95% of the people who were hospitalized in the province I live in, Canada, and got really sick with COVID, 92% of the people who ended up in the hospital had not been vaccinated. So as we reach pretty high vaccination levels in Canada, we're starting to open up the economy. We're up around 70-75% for first shots for people over age 12. I think that sets up a pretty good background so the Delta variant won't be able to transmit quite as easily, and it will really just be the people who hadn't got a vaccine that are at risk. So once we start to get this sort of stable data rolling out around the world, I think that will help a lot. Yes, we might have some hiccups here and there, and some countries can't get the vaccine fast enough, but they're rolling it out at a very, very aggressive level. So I wouldn't want to bet on the downside very long. When we look at the S&P 500, the chart's working its way higher. This was 4160 up to 4300. Still a nice run. Some people are saying, well, there's just not enough stocks moving above its 50-day moving average. The market's weak. It's going to fall apart here, blah, blah, blah. That might be true, but I still think this alternative energy space is one of the areas that we can focus in on. We're not building the copper mines fast enough, so copper, lithium for battery storage, all that area should do well. If you'd like to follow any of that, head over to gregschnell.com/sports. Sign up, 2-week free trial, and save over $300 on a new 1-year plan costing $497. So thanks for taking the time to join me on Market Buzz. Market Buzz airs Wednesday at 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time. You can also see the recording on StockCharts TV YouTube page or StockCharts on demand. Thanks, everybody. Have a good week. Bye-bye.
Hey guys, Dave Keller here with StockCharts.com. Thanks so much for watching our video. If you enjoyed it, and we hope you did, hit the like button right below. Also, we have so much new content every day. Consider subscribing to the channel. Just hit the subscribe button in the video or right below. Thanks for watching. Stay safe. Have a fantastic day.